Being with us on AM Agenda as we've been talking, the negotiations, of course, with the mining tax are continuing. The Resources Minister, Martin Ferguson, was keeping open the options of a compromise. Let's hear what he had to say yesterday on the 10 Network.
That consultation committee has no capacity to negotiate or make changes. Any changes will be made by the government because that is our responsibility and we must get it right. But at the end of the day, unlike the opposition, we actually believe the Australian community is entitled to a fair return on the development of its resources. We get one chance to develop those resources.
Barnaby Joyce, the Nationals frontbencher, was on the Sunday Agenda program and he had some interesting insights into the mining tax debate as it stands.
They're talking about conciliation because all of a sudden it's bitten them on the backside and they realise where this all leads. I haven't seen anything as nutty as this till I read about Hugo Chavez in Venezuela in 2007. All the rhetoric that lunatic used is the rhetoric that our Prime Minister is using, that he was nationalising for the sake of the benefit of the wider people. His tax was 60%, by the way.
Mark Dreyfus, there are reports this morning in The Australian that the government's going to be recommended from its consultation panel that it should scrap the write-off for 40% of losses and then possibly lift the threshold at which the super tax kicks in, at which a super tax defines and that tax kicks in. What do you make of that speculation? Would it make sense to try and placate the industry in that way?
Look, I'm not involved in the detail of the negotiations, Kieran, but I am certain that the man that Tony Abbott chose as his finance spokesman and then sacked as his finance spokesman is not going to assist the debate with the kind of hysterical statement that we just heard from him. This is a consultation that is occurring on the fine detail of the resource super profits tax, and it also needs to be borne in mind in this debate that it is a tax on super profits. You are only going to be paying this tax if there is super profitable activity going on. And of course the details need to be considered. Of course it needs to be ensured that it's a workable taxation regime. That's why the consultation's going on.
But there's no... Mark, the government can't back down on this, can it? It's got to stick to the 40% tax. It might get away with some changes around the edges, but overall, it can't afford another back down, surely.
The government's made it very clear that we are going to introduce a resource super profits tax. I'm looking forward to going to the next election in relation to the resource super profits tax. All that we've had from the opposition, as with so much else of the positive economic management and sound economic management that the government's been engaging in, is scrap it. Mitch said a moment ago that the opposition accepts... Mitch said a moment ago that the opposition accepts that there should be a fair return on mining, but of course it's the position of Tony Abbott that the resource super profits tax should be scrapped, and the opposition is not suggesting some tax to replace it.
Let's get Mitch's response to a few of those points.
Sure. Well, it's a dog of a tax. If you want to stop it, the only way is to vote for the coalition. Barnaby Joyce, I think, did actually make a pertinent observation with his reference to Hugo Chavez. Sure, at first blush, that sounds like it might be stretching things a bit, but when you have a government that's talking about super profits, evil super profits, that sounds a lot like Chavez. And also, a 6% return, that's not a super profit.
I don't know if I've heard the term evil super profits.
That's the undercurrent that these super profits from these evil mining companies must be hit for six. That's the sentiment behind it.
Let's get a few your thoughts on a couple of other issues around today. The Reserve Bank currency firm has been accused of this is Securency. It's a subsidiary, Securency International, accused of bribing foreign governments, foreign officials to get contracts. What do you make of this story?
Well, it's a developing story, and there's never a justification for seeking to bribe in order to get a commercial contract. There's a bit of a success story, I guess, behind all this, that Australia's polymer note technology is world leading. It ensures that it's very difficult to counterfeit Australian money, and that's something that a number of countries and central banks around the world have found attractive, to use that technology. I assume the Federal Police are investigating these current allegations. They don't sound good, but we'll have to wait and see what the what the results
Mark
of any
Dreyfus,
investigation
they are concerning the claims, aren't they?
Of course, and I'm not going to comment further. The federal police need to be investigating. I would not want to say anything at all which would prejudice that investigation.
Okay, let's get your thoughts on another story. The insulation industry back in Canberra apparently going to rally today. The Prime Minister said he was going to fix it a few months ago, Mark. He didn't. You can understand their anger.
The government's made it clear at all times since the 19th of February when the program was shut down that the government's concern in relation to insulation is safety, ensuring the safety of Australian households. The particular concerns that seem to be being raised today are installers who are still waiting for payment. I can say very directly that there are some 50,000 claims. The government's already paid 1.1 million claims in relation to installed insulation. There are 50,000 claims still awaiting processing. Every single one of those claims is one in respect of which there is a compliance concern or there was incomplete information. The installers that are protesting outside today have been invited by the government to meet with departmental officials to put their particular concerns. As I understand it, they haven't yet taken up that offer.
Okay, well, one of the insulation representatives today, Mark, is quoted in The Australian, has said, Mr Rudd has ruined an industry, getting away with it. I came to Canberra on February 24, where he met installers and promised that he would fix it. They're obviously very disappointed with the way the government's responded. They feel like a good industry has suffered because of the government's mistakes.
The government has acted on the report that Alan Hawke did for the government. Alan Hawke, very experienced governmental official, and his report made it completely clear that the government's concern needed to be safety. For those reasons, it wasn't possible, and he recommended against restarting the program. The government's concern remains safety. We are ensuring the safety of Australian households.
Your thoughts?
This whole scheme has been a debacle from beginning to end. When you artificially and quickly hyperinflate any particular sector, you're going to lead to dodgy operators coming in, and you're going to damage existing operators. That's what we predicted, and that's exactly what happened. We've seen deaths, we've seen fires, we've seen businesses go bust. That's been the result of this government scheme. Now, the government belatedly, and only after significant pressure, recognised and admitted that the scheme had been a complete debacle. They suspended the insulation scheme, and the Prime Minister promised he would introduce a new scheme. He went out the front of Parliament House, as you said, Kieran, and he met with insulation business operators, and he said, I get it, I'm going to fix it. He promised a new scheme. Well, the government did a backflip on that. There is no new scheme. And for the government now to be offering these businesses departmental discussions, that's no solution. It was good enough for the Prime Minister to go out and chat to them last time they were here. The Prime Minister should have the guts, go out, front up, and see them today.
Okay.
And I'm just going to add, the people who are protesting today, they're not protesting about payments which they haven't received. They're protesting about the fact that the government promised they would introduce a replacement scheme, which they haven't done. There are a lot of good operators who are out there before this home insulation scheme who've done it tough, and many have gone broke, and the Prime Minister needs to go out the front of Parliament House and front up today.
Should he front up, Mark? Should someone from the government at least go out and say to these people, explain that it is safety, as you say, which is the priority?
The government's made its position very clear, Kieran. There is an industry assistance package. The industry assistance package is both to installer companies and an assistance package for workers. That's some $57 million in total. And again, we've got phony outrage from the opposition. On the one hand, complaining about the speed with which this program was unfolded last year and the problems that may have been caused by speed.
It's real outrage.
And now calls for the program to be started up again.
No,
the government's concern is safety.
I'm saying the government made the commitment. Wasn't the opposition who said a new scheme should come into place? It was the government that did, and the government went back on its word. I'm pointing out the government's hypocrisy. This isn't faux outrage. This is real outrage. And the Prime Minister should have the guts to go up the front of the building.
It's the opposition's position that the program should not restart because the concern is only being expressed about process.
We're seeking to hold you to account.
All right, gentlemen. Appreciate it, as always. Great to see you. Have a good week. It's going to be a big week ahead here at Parliament. Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran.
Okay, stay with us after the break. We're going to have a look at the day ahead in business and also